Welcome to the What Sleep podcast, where we talk about all things crime, conspiracy, paranormal, and mystery. I'm Timothy,
I'm Bailey.
and let's get right into it. So, in today's episode, we'll be talking about the Exorcism of Anneliese Michel.
Is that like the Exorcism of Emily Rose?
It's actually the one that the movie is based on.
Oh, okay.
So, it is one of the most famous exorcisms to ever occur. It's also one of the only exorcisms to actually be recorded.
Oh. Really? There's no other recorded exorcism?
Most of the time, the church demands that everything be done in secret.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
But this one, for whatever reason, was an exception. In total, 67 exorcisms were performed on Anneliese.
Jesus Christ.
And
sorry,
I believe 42 of them were recorded.
That's insane.
So there's lots of audio to cull through. A lot of it is super disturbing. So
I'm excited.
Please be aware that I will be putting in the audio files into this podcast. So be warned if you're not into super disturbing things like that.
That's why we're here.
That's why we are here. But if you're not into that, I will let you know before I play it that it is super disturbing. So be on the lookout for that.
Let's do it.
All right. So the year is 1952 in the small town of Klingenberg, Germany, where Anneliese was born.
Klingenberg.
Okay. She was raised as a very strict Catholic. And as she was growing up, she was always described as a very smart, very likable young girl. In 1968, when Anneliese was 16 years old, she experienced her first seizure where she actually lost consciousness.
Oh.
It is stated that she felt as though a force was pinning her to her bed when the seizure was taking place.
Muscle,
Yeah, like muscle contractions, things like that. But she specifically said that she remembers it feeling as though something was pinning her to the bed.
That's scary. That's very scary.
Very scary. A year later, in August 1969, she experienced another episode. This time, her mother actually took her to go see a doctor.
Good.
They found Dr. Vogt, as well as a neurologist, Dr. Luthi. Dr. Luthi ran an EEG, which is a brain scan. But he said that he found absolutely nothing wrong with Anneliese. There was nothing out of the ordinary brain activity.
Do seizures leave any indication?
Usually, if you have seizures like that, there's something wrong with like the cerebral cortex, which is towards the front of the brain. But he said there was absolutely no evidence of any sort of brain damage or anything that would lead to seizures happening.
Oh.
Together, the two doctors hypothesized that Anneliese had to have been having some form of seizure that they've just never seen before. And then over the next few years, Anneliese would have a total of 2 more episodes.
Oh.
So they're very few and far between, but apparently they're very, very bad. Where she loses complete consciousness.
Are they described the same? Like somebody's holding her down by her, or
not from what I could find anywhere.
Just seizures.
It was just described as her having more episodes, and that was really it. In 1970, she had her third seizure, where she was then prescribed medication and anticonvulsant. A second brain scan was also conducted, and again, everything seemed completely normal from the results. In 1972, after her fourth episode, she was prescribed Dilantin, which is an anti-seizure medication, as well as having a third brain scan performed. One doctor did show some mildly irregular patterns, but nothing that would explain her symptoms at all.
Yeah, that's strange.
She was on these medications that were supposed to help it. She had another one, and this time that's when things started to show a little bit, but again, nothing crazy. The year 1973 is when things really take a turn. Anneliese was reported saying that she began hearing knocking sounds coming from inside her room.
Oh.
As well as hearing a voice that began damning her to hell.
That's a little
Yeah.
First of all, no. Second of all, rude. Third of all, what?
Yeah, and Anneliese's sister also reports hearing these knocking
really?
sounds coming from her room.
Wow. No, I
So,
got goosebumps.
yeah.
I don't like that.
So something was happening. Anneliese's mother said she became increasingly worried when she walked into Anneliese's room, seeing her furiously staring at a small statue of the Virgin Mary
I'm sorry.
with quote, piercing jet black eyes.
Oh, look.
And this is the weird part. She described her hands. Her hands turned into thick paws with claws.
I'm sorry. Her mom said that?
Her mom said that. Said that she noticed the jet black eyes thick paws with claws.
Could there be a hereditary mental disorder? Like schizophrenia. Is that hereditary?
I don't know.
I gotta look that up.
I have no idea.
Schizophrenia tends to run in families, but no single gene is thought to be responsible. It's more likely that a different combination of genes make people more vulnerable to the condition. However, having these genes does not necessarily mean you'll develop schizophrenia. So yes and no. All creepy.
Right. Yeah, very, very creepy. Later on that year, during a visit with the Dr. Luthi, Anneliese described seeing visions of demon faces that were torturing her, and she was stated as saying she felt as though the devil was inside her. She also said that she would occasionally smell something similar to that of burnt feces in her room.
Ew.
And people around her report smelling something similar whenever they were around her.
Maybe she was just stinky.
Maybe, but I don't see why that'd be a thing.
If she's... Yeah, continue.
According to some sources, it is said that Anneliese's mother went to Dr. Luthi and he advised her to take Anneliese to consult a religious official. One, bad doctor to do that.
Right.
Go ahead.
I don't trust his credentials. He was one of those, I failed the test and lied about my results.
So that's what she said. But Dr. Luthi would deny this claim later.
Okay, sorry, Dr. Luthi. You probably passed your test.
So I just find it weird that her mother would say she went to this doctor and then he said or recommended a religious official to her.
Right. Honestly,
like I don't know why she would lie about that.
It's probably a lie, but she probably wanted to give more credential to her wanting to see a religious official. Because like, if you run out of options, because how many years had this been going on?
16, 17 years.
16 or 17?
Well, in total, she was alive 16, 17
okay,
years.
I was
Sorry.
like, what do you mean?
This has been going on for about 4-ish years.
4-ish years? Okay, so you're 4 years into your daughter having all of these episodes and you seeing her apparently with claws and black eyes. Like, if doctors aren't able to help that, like your other resource, like what other resources do you have? And if they're Catholic,
Yeah.
So she probably just wanted to say that he recommended it to give more credit to her going to him.
Maybe. But I don't know, that just seems a weird thing to mention.
Right.
As we'll talk about later.
Oh, okay.
Whether or not the claim is true, in September of 1973, the family came to a priest known as Father Alt. Further later on in that year, in November, Anneliese met with a psychiatrist who had diagnosed her as neurotic with possible epilepsy. Another neurologist couldn't find a name, said she had epileptic patterns. The doctor would take her off Dilantin and would prescribe her Tegretol, which was a much stronger drug.
Okay, for...
anti-seizures.
Okay.
Now, we're fast forwarding to 2 years later. It's now 1975. Anneliese's condition worsened even further.
Oh, no.
She would barely sleep, and she would stay up praying fervently to the point to where the bones in her knees would broken, and she would still get out of bed to pray.
How hard is she hitting the floor?
Well, she was doing it for hours on end every day.
I don't think your bones break from sitting on the floor.
I don't know.
She must have been slamming down.
Apparently, but she was praying super hard and doing all this thing. It was also said that she would actually eat spiders, flies, and other insects around the room, as well as you'll probably remember from this scene in The Exorcist. She would actually lick up her own urine off the floor.
Oh, no.
So right here you see the mental
Oh,
state starting to really change.
I don't like that. I feel so bad.
Yeah, it is a gruesome event, which actually I can pull up pictures of Anneliese before.
Yeah, I don't think I actually know what she looks like.
Before and after. So this is Anneliese before everything went down.
She looks so healthy.
Right? She looks like a normal young lady.
Yeah, she's pretty and healthy.
Pretty.
Oh no.
This is her as her condition started to get worse.
She lost so much weight.
As we'll talk about.
She's got
further.
like a black eye.
Yep. Later on, she would also be found to deface and destroy holy images and pictures around the house, and as well as display what some refer to as superhuman strength. She reportedly threw her sister as if she were a rag doll.
Really?
Like she just straight up tossed her. Now,
and she looks so okay. So sorry. Was that like after? I assume that's that picture that you showed me of her having lost all that weight.
So this is like her progressively getting worse. So,
right. So she was like underweight when she threw her sister.
She was starting to lose weight. She was refusing to eat a lot of the times.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, people were referred to her having superhuman strength at
That's
times,
horrifying.
Specifically when religious items were shown to her.
Right.
Later, a priest by the name of Father Rodwick heard about Anneliese and was convinced that she was possessed. After going to the bishop, an exorcism was formally approved. A priest by the name of Father Renz would be the one to carry out the exorcism. On September 24th of 1975, the very first exorcism was conducted. Father Renz was actually allowed to record some of the sessions. 42 sessions in total were recorded, and I'll go ahead and play one now. Fair warning, this is when it's very, very disturbing. So if you're not about that, go ahead and fast forward about 8 minutes or so.
See you guys in 8 minutes.
Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen.
So langt's noch nicht, also?
Nein, im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Sage die ganze Wahrheit.
Eine Lüge, Wahrheit sage ich nicht.
Im Namen Jesu und im Namen Maria befehle ich dir. Sage die ganze Wahrheit im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes.
Ja, die scheiß Ding tragen muss zum Beispiel.
Zum Beispiel wann?
Oh, Sie müssen als Priester erkennbar sein. Wie der Annette und der aus Aschebeich. Oder die Drecksau da draußen. Oh.
Alles zu sagen, was du zu sagen hast. Im Namen Jesu und im Namen
Leute sollen zum Beichte gehen. Und zwar
im Namen Jesu und im Namen Maria befehle ich dir.
Nein!
Zu sagen. Im Namen Jesu.
Scheißding! Das Scheißding, das schmeiß ich überall raus. Aber zum Glück geht ja fast niemand mehr. Nein, das Scheißding.
In was? In Beispiel. Persönliche Beichte. Bekennen.
Nein!
Sage die Wahrheit im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes.
Ja! Ja!
Du sagst noch mehr jetzt im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Im Namen Jesu und im Namen Maria befehle ich dir, alles zu sagen im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Von wem ist Anneliese verflucht worden? Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Sage alles. Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Im Namen
Mit dem Scheißding wurde doch.
Im Namen,
Ich vergaß ihn.
im Namen Jesu.
Ich reiß ihn aber ohne.
Dir unreiner Geist alles zu sagen. Im Namen
Ich bin
des
nicht
Vaters
unrein,
und des
no.
Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Im Namen Jesu und im Namen Maria befehle ich dir, unreiner Geist, alles zu sagen. Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des
Ja, das Scheißloch ohne ist ich.
Sant'Amiano.
Ja. Und das andere daneben.
Und die Piazza.
Ihnen nicht.
Im Namen Jesu
Nein!
Maria befehle ich dir, die
Nein!
Wahrheit zu sagen. Vater der Lüge, sage die Wahrheit. Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Vater der Lüge, sage die Wahrheit. Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Im Namen Jesu und im Namen Maria befehle ich dir, alles zu sagen. Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des
Den
Heiligen Geistes.
Scheißzeug muss so schnell wie möglich unter die Leute. Die Scheiße.
Die Tonbänder, die Kassetten, ja. Die
Nein!
Wahrheit im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen
Ja!
Und was ist noch für ein Wallfahrtsort, den du nennen willst? Nennen musst im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Du musst es sagen im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Im Namen Jesu und im Namen Maria befehle ich dir es zu sagen, im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Die volle Wahrheit im Namen des Vaters und
Kirche
des
hat's ja
Sohnes
nicht
und des
anerkannt.
Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Hier das Bach. Wann wird es anerkannt?
Wow, nee, das haben wir ihnen nicht fertig gebracht.
Sage die volle Wahrheit.
Ja!
Vater der Lüge im Namen des Vaters und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Vater der Lüge, sage die volle Wahrheit.
Ich höre nicht schlecht.
Des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen.
Hat die Kirche Heroldsbach verworfen?
Ja,
Hat die Kirche Heroldsbach verworfen?
Sie kennen es nicht ganz.
Hat sie es verworfen?
Sie erkennen es nicht an.
Hat sie es verworfen? Ich frage dich, sage die Wahrheit im Namen Jesu Maria. Hat die Kirche Heroldsbach verworfen? Hat die Kirche Heroldsbach verworfen? Sei die Wahrheit im Namen des dreieinigen Gottes. Im Namen Mariens.
Scheißloch.
Hat die Kirche Heroldsbach verworfen, sagt die Wahrheit. Im Namen Mariens, der allerseligsten Jungfrau.
Das Scheißloch, das Verfluchte. Aber zum Glück ist es nicht anerkannt.
Wann wird es anerkannt?
So schnell noch nicht.
Aha, also doch.
Nein!
Sage die volle Wahrheit im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Sage die volle Wahrheit im Namen Jesu und im Namen Maria, im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Es wird also anerkannt werden.
Was meinst du da untereinander? Was meinst du da? Was meinst du da bei Bande?
Ja, da ist er.
Was ist da?
Die ist dort.
Die ist da.
Das haben sie nicht anerkannt.
Das kommt noch.
Oh.
Das kommt noch. Bist du auch dort?
Ja.
Ja. Ja.
Ich bin überall, wo die Ach ist.
Ist doch so gut, warum kannst du sie nicht leiden? So gut.
Warum?
Die allerseligste Jungfrau. Und
Warum weißt du uns so viel klaut?
weil sie so viel Seelen rettet.
Ja.
Wir lieben sie. Wir nicht. Das Cedas ab Ecclesia Dei.
Ach,
Forte inferi non prevalide versus eam.
oh.
Das Cedas ab Ecclesia.
Au.
Das Cedas ab Ecclesia Dei.
Oh.
Forte inferi non prevalide versus eam.
Ja, wir sind stark. Aber die scheiß Ekklesia. Die in dem Scheißbuch steht drin.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a little.
It sounds like, so when I was listening to it, I was thinking about like throat singing. Have you heard throat singing before?
Yeah.
So it's like a technique that they use that she could have used, maybe.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but in some of the parts, it was almost as though she was kind of growling and
Right.
talking at the same time, a little bit.
Maybe.
Which in another recording, which I'll play shortly, you'll also hear that as well. Yeah, and that whole recording, essentially, she was just going back and forth with the priest, talking about the Virgin Mary, talking about how she's not recognized and all this stuff. Also
By the demons?
Yeah,
Okay.
essentially. Now, in this next audio recording, you'll hear Anneliese start naming beings who have possessed her.
Oh.
The priest asks who is inside of you, and she'll start naming some high-profile characters.
Okay.
She does state that Judas, one who killed Jesus, Hitler,
Of course.
Nero, who was a Roman king, like way back in the day, he was known to be very tyrannical and pretty much just a really shitty dude.
Okay.
Cain, the first murderer,
Right.
as well as Lucifer himself.
And Satan.
And Satan, of course.
That's a lot for one person.
So those are 5 that she named, but I did notice I did say 6. Later on, she did say that the 6th entity possessing her was by the name Fleischmann. Fleischmann was a very old priest back in the 1500s who was excommunicated for essentially crimes against the church.
Okay. What did he do?
Yeah, so essentially he was just a really big alcoholic, and he was accused of assault and attempted murder many times.
Oh.
So he got excommunicated from the church. The main thing is that the priests later on say no way that Anneliese would be able to know about him.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Is that like a locked up file kind of thing, or?
I guess so.
Just.
It's a little weird that she would know about him
Okay.
when there's so little that we know.
Okay.
Type of thing. Also, I do have pictures of Anneliese during some of the exorcisms, and you'll see that her condition deteriorates every time. So right here is a picture. As you'll see right here, this is them having to restrain her to keep her down while during the exorcism.
She still looks so beat up.
Yeah, she is not looking good. I'll go ahead and play the next audio tape. If you're not about it, go ahead and skip forward about 4 minutes or so.
Nein, je kletsen. Maar meer kletsen. Oh, so down every line, don't schiane, don't.
Sind wir schon 3?
Wie. Was ist so der Scheiße?
Als Kind Gottes.
Ich hab dein Maul erschlagen.
Namen des Vaters. Ruhe gibt's nur dort, wo die Liebe ist.
Ja, bei uns gibt's
Nur Hass.
Ja.
Und wo nur Hass ist, da gibt's keine Ruhe.
Nein. Und für uns gibt's nie Ruhe. Nie.
Weil
In der Ewigkeit. Und jetzt bin ich verdammt. Die müssen in eigenen Seminaren ausgebildet werden. Die dürfen nicht auf die anderen Universitäten. Kapiert?
Klar. Ist da sonst noch etwas zu sagen? Weil der Teufel größere Macht.
Im Namen deiner seligen Jungfrau, im Namen Jesu, befehle ich dir auszufahren. Im Namen des dreifaltigen Gottes, des Vaters, im Namen des dreifaltigen Geistes, befehle ich dir auszufahren und nie. Sag mir den Namen.
Ich, der Judas und der Nero, der Kain und der Hitler. Fünfstimme.
Das ist der sechste?
Oh, den haben wir gelogen.
Den habt ihr dazu gelogen.
They sound so angry, and it's kind of interesting too that they could kind of determine. Well, I guess there were just different voices for each of her possessors
Yeah, like she just had different little mannerisms. Like she was talking as
and voices,
Lucifer.
and
There's a lot more like
undertone,
like
groan,
undertone, like growling type of thing. It's just one big crazy thing. And in May of 1976, Anneliese became the worst she's ever been.
Oh, really? That's not the worst so far. She's looking
This
rough
right
already.
here is about the worst she's ever been. During this point is when she started banging her head into walls and started attacking herself and others.
Okay.
Her family was said to have to tie her up so she couldn't cause any harm to anyone or herself. Right here is when Anneliese completely started refusing to eat. Stated that she would say she was, quote, not permitted to eat.
That's what she was saying.
That's what she would
like
say.
The,
She's
the
not permitted
demons.
to. Type
Okay.
of thing.
That's
Now, during this point,
me
this is
some
when
of
she
those
was starting to
demons.
weigh under 80 pounds.
for what, 20?
I believe at this point she's about 22, 23.
Damn. Under 80?
Under 80 pounds.
I mean, she looks it.
Yeah. And again, she would still show great strength. And I actually have a picture of around this time when she started to bang her head on the wall.
Oh, wow. She looks so beat up.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
Is she like missing teeth right there?
Probably.
It looks like she's missing a tooth right there.
Yeah. Probably, honestly, with how she's been treating herself.
Was it witnessed by the priests and stuff that she was actually hitting herself, or was that like reported by the family?
It was reported by the family primarily.
Mhm.
But another thing that people would say is that really the only time she would get like this is when the priests were there.
Okay.
But we'll get to that later. Now, a month later, her entire face began sinking in. And on the 30th of June, another exorcism was performed where she begged, please, absolution.
What does that mean?
Death. Like,
Death?
give me death.
Oh,
that's
absolution.
it.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the next morning, Anneliese was found dead in her room.
Oh, wow.
And I do have a picture of her body
No, that's so sad.
and how she looked after her death.
I don't like that.
Yeah, so
Even
you
a
can
little
tell
bit.
she's been.
Look at her. Like, look at the difference.
Yeah.
That's so sad, dude.
So yeah, she was found dead. As you can tell, super skinny. Her
She looks
eyes
like
are
she's
sunken.
almost smiling.
Yeah, like
or maybe-
she's kind of relieved.
Right.
Not a pretty sight.
It's no.
Now, it's said that Anneliese refused any medical attention during the exorcisms, and that her family and her put all of their faith in the church to help her.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She died at the age of 23, as it was stated, due to starvation.
Yeah.
In total, she had 67 exorcisms performed on her, and at the time of death, she weighed only 68 pounds. Yeah.
That's so sad.
In 1978, Anneliese's parents and the two priests, Father Renz and Father Alt, were accused of negligent homicide. The case would go to trial later that year.
Right. Yeah, that's sad. Can you imagine your child. Okay, so is schizophrenia, is that what makes people kind of, I mean, tend to act like that? Maybe in like
So
severe cases.
schizophrenia is mainly like they see things. Um, she could have had it.
Or
This could have been a
believe
whole thing.
things.
Um, because it is reported that she did see demon faces. She was hearing
Right.
knocking. The only thing with that is that her sister reported hearing it as well.
Well, she could have been knocking on the wall
Could have,
herself,
yeah, very possible. But
So yeah, either way, it's scary.
yeah,
Either way, it's scary.
it's a
But
terrifying whole event,
she just needed doctors to help her.
and that's what this whole trial is going to be about. This is one of the only exorcisms to ever go to trial.
Right.
The main thing to really take away is, Anneliese, over the course of about 2 years, was just her condition was getting worse and
Yeah.
worse. The priests were constantly just coming over, seeing her in this situation, and then just doing what they're supposed to do.
What they think they're supposed to do.
What they think
right.
they're supposed to do.
Not what they're actually supposed to do, which is call a doctor.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even they were saying it's only really when the priests come over that she kind of gets like that. So why didn't they have a doctor come over while the priests weren't there to try to tend to her, or at least give her feeding tubes so she can't eat?
So, like I said, it is stated that Anneliese herself refused medical attention.
Knock her out.
Which, according to rights, if they refuse, then
Sure.
technically they can't do anything. But during the trial, they do go over this,
Okay.
talking about, again, how it's negligent homicide and how the parents and the priests seeing her condition get worse and worse up to the point where
Yeah.
she only weighed 68 pounds.
Because I mean, it comes to a point where if you were mentally unstable like that, if that's what it was, if it wasn't demons, then you won't be able to agree to that in your right mind. Like you'd have to
Yeah.
be, you're not in your right mind to say I need help. Obviously she needed help.
Yeah. During the trial, the defense, which is Annaliese's parents and the 2 priests, put into evidence all of their audio recordings of the exorcism and stated that Anneliese was permitted to deny medical treatment due to her rights, as
Right.
you said. Some of the medical treatment she would have likely received would have been tranquilizing,
Right.
force feeding, and a form of electroshock therapy.
Oh, okay. That's not helpful, but
Given the time period,
yeah. Well, this is in the 80s, wasn't it?
70s,
70s?
which they thought
I guess they still did
shocking
it
the
back
gays
then.
was going to get the
Right.
gay out of them. So
Right.
Around that time in 1976, a family friend by the name of Thea Hine, a few months before Annaliese's death, Anneliese apparently begged on her knees for Hine to not suggest medical attention to anyone.
Oh.
So another notable thing is that towards the end, Father Alt was reported to go and search for medical attention for Anneliese.
Okay, he was reported to go.
Reported to have gone.
Okay.
On May 30th, he came to contact his friend Dr. Richard Roth, and he went to visit Anneliese. During his visit, he stated that Anneliese had no external injuries, but Father Renz noted that she had many bruises, black eyes, and swollen cheeks.
Yeah. What do you mean no external? Like, well,
The
I guess,
doctor reported not seeing anything like that, which clearly we have pictures showing
she's got
her injuries, sunken eyes,
a
black
busted
eyes,
lip, and
busted lips,
her
that whole
teeth
9
are kind of
yards.
punched in a little.
Yeah.
What kind of doctor?
Dr. Richard Roth was quoted as saying, quote, "There are no injections against the devil."
Injections.
There's nothing he can do against the devil.
Oh, I gotcha. Sure.
So
he's like
to me, that just sounds like a really bad doctor.
Sounds like a fake doctor.
Yeah. Curiously enough, during an autopsy of Anneliese, it was revealed that she had a healthy brain and that there was no signs of damage that could have led to epileptic seizures.
Mm.
So it leaves into question.
We've grown in science.
We've grown in science, yes. But the fact that even then there's no clear signs of damage to the brain.
Did they keep her brain?
I don't know. Maybe. Who knows?
I was going to say maybe we can examine it again.
The thing with this, though, is that the court seemed to ignore any facts brought up by the defense. Like how Annaliese's eyes were unusually dilated and that she had no ulcers, which are frequently found on starvation victims.
Okay.
They ruled that her death was because of starvation, but there was no ulcers typically found on starvation patients.
Okay. I guess. I don't know a lot about ulcers and what would cause that to be a starvation symptom.
It's crazy. Now we're gonna get to the prosecution.
Okay.
The main things that the prosecution had during the trial was that they accused the parents and priests of negligent homicide by failing to act to save Anneliese's life. 2 experts said that Father Alt showed signs of schizophrenia himself, and that Anneliese suffered from psychosis and seizures, not demonic possession.
Right.
They also say that the medication Anneliese was on successfully suppressed signs of seizures, which led to delusional psychosis associated with epilepsy. A lot of big words there.
So you can get
So essentially,
psychosis from.
they were suppressing the seizures so successfully that Anneliese thought she was going crazy and essentially gave her psychosis, which could explain why she was starting to hear and see things.
Yeah.
And believed it to be that of like demonic entities.
Right.
Type of thing. They also argued that Anneliese's psychosis was made worse by the exorcisms by playing into her religious fantasy.
Yeah.
So they believe that because Anneliese was not in a good state of mind, she was already starting to kind of believe that, you know, demons were inside of her, and then priests coming in to exorcise her
Would
only
freak her
played
out,
into
yeah.
her fantasy of her believing she is possessed,
Right.
causing her to act out in these ways.
Yeah, I believe that.
To go with it, it was said that Anneliese would behave normally between exorcisms. So when the priests were not there, she was relatively normal.
Right.
So again, that kind of plays into the fact that she wasn't in the right state of mind, and the priest just triggered something in her brain to freak out.
Yeah.
Essentially.
That's kind of like with rabies. You know, you get rabies and something it alters your, I think is it psyche, or it gives you like a phobia of water. So like
maybe, I don't know.
You're not okay when you have rabies, but when you're presented with water, it literally like closes your throat basically.
Yeah.
And makes you spit it back out. The brain's weird.
It is. It's a very complicated organ. Now, we don't know if the medication helped stop the seizures or if they just stopped on their own, but her apparent visions predate the medical suppression. So before she's even put on anything, she was reported as seeing these demonic visions.
Okay.
So again,
might not have been the cause.
It might not have been it, but who knows at this point?
Right.
The prosecution would go on to win the trial, with the parents getting 6 months in prison and the 2 priests getting 6 months in prison, as well as a 3-year suspension from the church, on top of having to pay for all court costs.
Oh, really?
The official ruling is that Anneliese was unable to make decisions for herself, and she should have been forced to submit to medical care.
Yeah.
Anneliese does have a shrine up for her in Germany. After the trial, the parents asked the authorities for permission to exhume the remains of their daughter. The official reason presented by the parents to authorities was that Michel had been buried in undue hurry in a cheap coffin.
Oh, really?
Almost 2 years after the burial, on the 25th of November 1978, her remains were replaced in a new oak coffin lined with tin. The official reports state that the body bore the sign to give her a better coffin, I guess. Tin. I don't know what the tin thing does. Yeah. Okay. I don't know much about coffins. The official reports state that the body bore the signs of consistent deterioration. The accused exorcists were discouraged from seeing the remains of Michel. Arnold Renz later stated that he had been prevented from entering the mortuary. Her grave became and remains a pilgrimage site. After this, the official number of sanctioned exorcisms decreased in Germany, and in spite of Pope Benedict XVI's support for wider use of it compared to Pope John Paul II, who in 1999 made the rules stricter, involving only rare cases.
Right. I agree with that. I respect that.
Now, another thing that people believe, on the 6th of June 2013, a fire broke out in the house where Anneliese Michel lived.
Okay.
And although the local police said it was a case of arson, some locals attributed it to the exorcism case. So, yeah, here's a picture of her gravestone.
That's so sad. Living memory of Anneliese. Is it
Anneliese Michel.
It's nice, at least.
Yeah, it's a nice little headstone.
Yeah.
That right there is the Exorcism of Anneliese Michel.
It's wild, yeah. I'm very much on both sides. I think I'm on the side of demons be scary, and I don't necessarily believe in them, but I'm also not gonna try to fuck with them.
Yeah.
You know? But I'm also on the side of, I believe she had mental illness that should have been treated instead of played with.
Kind of makes you wonder.
Because it feels like an experiment almost.
Yeah, like it kind of makes me think that all in all, if events would have just played out differently, maybe she would have just been fine.
Right.
And it turned out it wasn't
Gotten the
demons and
help
she
that
was
she
just
needed,
a little
yeah. 'Cause
crazy or something, and she would have still been alive type of thing.
Right.
But
I think it really feels like an experiment to me, because like, why else would they allow this to be one of the only recorded exorcisms? You know, they've got
Right.
so much recorded evidence of it and stuff like that. So I don't know.
like the only thing that kind of makes me wonder about this case is just the audio recordings themselves.
Why?
Like
'Cause
just her voice in general is super creepy.
yeah, 100%.
Just her deteriorating health, as you saw
Yeah.
in the pictures, which will be up on our Instagram, by the way. Um, it just seems like a storm of everything that just caused her to decline greatly.
Yeah.
In terms of her speaking in tongues or however you want to take it,
Well, didn't she speak in other languages too at some
I
point?
believe she spoke in English, German, and French.
I think it
and
was Italian or
certain-
something. Yeah.
Maybe Italian.
Well, either way, yeah.
Either way, she was speaking in different languages, which, as far as I'm aware, she never learned.
Right. Yeah.
So,
That's crazy.
but yeah, again, the priest ended up in jail. The family ended up in jail.
Right.
As far as I'm aware, the priests are back doing their thing. The family is just trying to live their life now.
Yeah. Was she the only daughter? No, she was a sister.
She
had the
had
sister.
another sister.
Okay, yeah. That's right.
So,
I wonder
yeah.
how they feel about all that now.
I have no idea. Do you think they should have got jail time?
Yes, I do.
You do?
It's sad as well as very tragic that they didn't help her the way she needed it. Like I know that it's what they thought she needed because of religion and that sort of thing, but there comes a point where you look at it and you say, okay, well, if medical help didn't do anything to help her, we're going to try religion. It has to go both ways. Like if religion isn't helping,
But
we have
that's
to
the
try.
thing with that one doctor who came and
I don't believe
right
he was a
here's-
real doctor.
Yeah, who knows? But like the fact that he came and said there was no external wounds or anything of the sort, but then the priest himself was saying there was.
But there's
conflicting
pictures
things.
of it.
Yeah, there's pictures of it. So I don't know what happened there, if that was just made up.
Right.
I don't know. But is it possession? Is it psychosis with schizophrenia? I guess we'll really never know at this point.
I guess not.
Again, that is the end of the case of Anneliese Michel. If you like this episode, please leave a like and subscribe. Our podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts.
And you can follow us on social media to stay up to date on any new episodes or for any news. We do post pictures or we try to post pictures and audio clips of each of our cases. You can find us on Twitter at What Sleep Pod, on Instagram at What Sleep Podcast. We have a subreddit, What Sleep Podcast, and you can join our Facebook at What Sleep Podcast.
All right. We appreciate you guys listening and stay tuned for more episodes.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.